Hi, my name is Christina Rogers, and I am 120 years old.
That sentence still feels strange in my mouth, but I have to say it.
I've outlived everyone who ever knew the sound of my childhood laugh. I've buried my parents, my siblings, my friends, even my children. And before you ask, no, I don't feel lucky. If you're watching this right now, pause for just 1 second and tell me something in the comments. Where are you watching from? What country, what city, what corner of the world found its way into my final story? I like knowing where my words are landing. It reminds me the world is still moving, even as I slow down. Now listen carefully, because what I'm about to tell you is not about living longer. It's about what time quietly takes from you while you're busy living. Most people think the hardest part of getting old is the body failing. They're wrong. The hardest part is realizing how many moments you thought you'd have later. I was born in 1905 in a small wooden house that no longer exists. No electricity, no running water, no photographs of my first years. Only memories, fragile ones, passed down through stories that no one is alive to confirm anymore. When I was a little girl, time felt endless. Days were long. Winters felt eternal. Summers smelled like fresh bread and dust. I remember sitting on the front steps of our home, swinging my legs, watching the road as if something important might appear. I always believed something was coming. A better life. A bigger moment. A future that would finally begin. That belief stayed with me for decades. And that's where my first regret quietly began. At 18, I was certain life hadn't started yet. At 30, I told myself I was still young. At 50, I believed I had plenty of time to fix things. At 80, I realized I had been wrong. But by then, it was already too late to change most of it. People don't lose time all at once. Time doesn't shout when it leaves. It slips away quietly, during busy mornings, during postponed conversations, during love we assume will always be there. I married at 22. His name was Edward. He was kind in a quiet way, the kind of man who fixed broken things instead of talking about them. I told myself I loved him. But love, I would later learn, isn't something you assume. It's something you practice. And I didn't practice enough. I thought there would always be another day to say more. Another chance to listen better. Another year before things changed. Edward died when I was 41. One ordinary morning. No warning. No final conversation. I remember standing in the doorway after the doctor left, staring at the empty chair where he used to sit. And that's when time first betrayed me. Not loudly, not dramatically. It simply showed me what I had missed. I raised children after that. I was busy, tired, focused on survival. I thought being present meant being there physically. I didn't know how wrong that was. Children don't remember the meals you cooked. They remember the moments you looked at them like they mattered. And I was always looking at something else. The clock, the bills, the future. Never realizing the future was quietly turning into the past. By the time I turned 70, people started asking me the question everyone asks old people. What's the secret to a long life? I hated that question, because living long doesn't mean living well. Longevity without reflection is just endurance. And endurance is not the same as fulfillment. Now I sit in this quiet room, surrounded by photographs of people who no longer exist anywhere except in my memory. I have lived through wars, revolutions, inventions, and generations. I have seen the world change its clothes 100 times. And yet, the greatest lesson I learned came far too late. Time doesn't wait for clarity. It moves forward whether you're ready or not. In the next part, I'll tell you about the moment I realized what I had truly wasted. Not money, not opportunity, but something far more painful. Something you still have. And if you're young, what I'm about to say next might change how you live your tomorrow. Stay with me. When you live as long as I have, you stop counting years. You start counting moments. Moments you return to again and again in your mind. Moments that still carry weight long after everything else has faded. And there is one truth I need you to hear now, because it will not sound important at first. But it is. Most regrets are not about what we did wrong. They are about what we didn't slow down long enough to notice. By the time I turned 60, people started treating me differently. Not unkindly, just differently. They spoke louder. They repeated themselves. They assumed I had already lived my best days. I believed them. That belief cost me more than any mistake I ever made. Because the moment you believe your best days are behind you, you stop protecting the ones you still have. I remember a summer afternoon when I was 63. My granddaughter came to visit. She was still small then, missing teeth, loud laughter, endless questions. She asked me to sit outside with her. Just sit. I told her I was tired. That I'd come later. Later never happened. She grew up. She moved away. She became busy, like I once was. That afternoon returns to me often. Not because it was special, but because it could have been. Here is something no one tells you. Life doesn't punish you with tragedy every time. Sometimes it punishes you with comfort. Comfort convinces you there is no urgency. And urgency is what keeps love alive. When you are young, you believe time is a container. You think you can fill it later. But time is not a container. It is a river. And once a moment passes, you cannot step back into it. I spent decades standing on the shore, telling myself I would enter when I was ready. I never realized the water was already carrying pieces of my life away. I outlived all my closest friends. One by one, they left. Not dramatically, quietly. A phone call, a letter, a silence that never broke. And here is what surprised me most. I did not miss their faces as much as I missed the conversations we never finished. Things we meant to say. Questions we never asked. Time does not forgive unfinished sentences. At 85, I started waking up very early. Before the sun. The house would be completely silent. Those hours became my confessional. I would sit with a blanket over my shoulders and replay my life, not the big events, but the small choices. The times I chose efficiency over presence. The times I chose being right over being kind. The times I chose silence instead of honesty. None of those choices felt dangerous in the moment. That's how regret works. It disguises itself as practicality. People assume regret is loud. It isn't. Regret is a whisper that grows clearer as everything else fades. It asks you questions you can no longer answer. Let me tell you something difficult. Love is not proven by endurance. It is proven by attention. I endured many relationships, but I did not always attend them. I was there, but not there enough. And at 120 years old, I understand something painful. Being present once in a while is not the same as being present when it matters. By the time I reached 100, I had stopped wishing for more years. I started wishing for more depth. One more honest conversation. One more slow afternoon. One more chance to say, I see you. But life does not negotiate with wishes. It only responds to action. And action has an expiration date. If you are watching this and thinking, I still have time, you're right. But time is not what you think it is. You don't lose it at the end. You lose it gradually. Every day you rush through moments that are asking for your attention. Let me ask you something, and answer it honestly, even if only to yourself. When was the last time you were fully present with someone, without looking ahead to what came next? That question haunted me for decades. In the next part, I will tell you the most painful realization of my entire life. The one that came after 110 years. The realization that made me finally understand why I feel this way now. And what I would do immediately, today, if I were given one more ordinary year. Not a miracle, just one normal year. At 110 years old, something strange happens. You stop fearing death. Not because you're brave, but because fear requires energy, and energy becomes precious. What replaces fear is something quieter. Clarity. And clarity can hurt more than fear ever did. I remember the exact morning it arrived. I was sitting by the window, watching the light move across the wall. Not quickly, slowly, like it had nowhere else to be. That's when it struck me. I had spent most of my life rushing toward things that never waited for me anyway. You see, I believed success would eventually slow everything down. I believed stability would bring peace. I believed comfort would make life feel complete. It never did. Success didn't give me time. It distracted me from it. Here is the truth I avoided for over a century. The most important moments in life do not announce themselves. They whisper. And I was too busy listening for applause. At 110, memories no longer arrive in order. They come like fragments. A laugh in another room. The smell of rain on warm pavement. The sound of someone calling my name and meaning it. Those moments were not milestones. They were pauses. And pauses are where life actually lives. I used to think legacy meant being remembered. Now I know that is wrong. Legacy means what lives on in others because of how you treated them. And that realization shattered me. Because there were people I loved, truly loved, who never felt it strongly enough while it mattered. Not because I didn't care, but because I assumed love was understood without being shown. Let me tell you something no one prepares you for. The people you lose don't disappear all at once. They fade in layers. First, their voice, then their face, then the sound of their laughter. Until one day, all that remains is a feeling, and even that grows faint. What stays forever are the moments you wish you had leaned into instead of away from. At 110, I stopped asking, what if? I started asking something far worse. Why not then? Why not one more hug? Why not one more honest conversation? Why not one more afternoon with nothing planned? I had no good answers. Here is what breaks my heart the most. I spent years waiting to feel ready to live fully. Ready for rest. Ready for joy. Ready to be present. But readiness is a lie time tells you to keep you compliant. Life does not require readiness. It requires participation. If you are watching this right now, understand this. You do not need a wake-up call. You do not need tragedy. You do not need to lose someone to realize their value. You only need to pay attention. I once believed I would feel satisfied at the end. Instead, I feel awakened, too late to act on most of what I finally understand. And that is the cruelest irony of long life. Wisdom arrives when the body can no longer obey it. If I were given one ordinary year, not youth, not health, not miracles, just a normal year, I would do 3 things differently. I would listen more than I speak. I would sit longer than I stand. And I would say what matters before silence forces it on me. I don't want you to feel sad for me. I want you to feel urgent for yourself. Because you are still early. Even if you don't think you are. In the final part, I will tell you the message I want left behind when I am gone. Not advice, not motivation, a warning and a gift. Something I wish someone had said to me when I still had decades ahead of me. If you've listened this far, thank you. Because this is the part I've been avoiding my whole life. Not because it's hard to say, because it's hard to believe. When you live for 120 years, you learn that life doesn't end with one big moment. It ends with 1,000 small moments. Moments you didn't appreciate. Moments you took for granted. Moments you thought would always be there. And the truth is, the only thing that truly lasts after we're gone is the way we made others feel while we were still here. So here is the message I want to leave behind. Not as a lecture, not as a speech, but as a promise you can keep for yourself. 1. Don't wait to say, "I love you." You might think the words are always available, but they are not. Not forever, and not always when you need them most. When I was younger, I thought love was obvious. I thought it didn't need to be spoken, but it does. Love needs to be heard. 2. Don't postpone what matters. You think you have time. You think tomorrow will be easier. You think you will feel more ready later. You won't. The future is not guaranteed. Even for someone like me, who has lived far longer than most. 3. Stop chasing the wrong kind of success. Success is not a number. It is not a title. It is not a bank balance. Success is the ability to look back without regret, and to know you lived with love, honesty, and attention. 4. Be present, truly present. Put your phone down. Stop scrolling. Stop trying to be somewhere else. Because the only life you are guaranteed is the one happening right now. 5. Forgive before it's too late. Forgiveness is not for the person who hurt you. It's for the person who is still living with the pain. And the longer you wait, the heavier it becomes. Now, I want to tell you something that will sound shocking, but it's true. If I could go back, I wouldn't want more years. I would want more moments. Not more time. More attention. More presence. More love. More honesty. Because the years you have are not as important as what you do with them. And if there is one thing I regret most, it's that I didn't realize that sooner. So here's my question for you, and it's not a gentle one. If you had only 1 year left, what would you change today? Think about it. Write it down. And then do it. Because waiting until tomorrow is the most dangerous thing you can do. Before we end, tell me where you're watching from. Write your location in the comments below. And if this story touched you, subscribe for the next one. Because I'm not done yet. There are more stories, more warnings, more truths. And I want you to hear them before it's too late.